Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Aaron. President Obama has laid out his strategy for defeating the brutal Islamic State group that's been terrorizing Iraq. But some wonder if it's too little, too late to destroy them now that the terrorists have spent years building a safe haven in Syria. White House correspondent Jennifer Wishon reports.
President Obama addressed Americans increasingly concerned about the threat Islamic State militants pose as they increasingly doubt their commander-in-chief's ability to effectively face it.
We can't erase every trace of evil from the world, and small groups of killers have the capacity to do great harm. That was the case before 9/11, and that remains true today.
The biggest escalation to fighting over the past few weeks is the president's decision to launch airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. He's also deploying 500 additional U.S. troops to assist Iraqi security forces. America will continue fighting ISIS from the air in coordination now with Iraqis on the ground. House Speaker John Boehner responded. He has finally begun to make the case the nation has needed him to make for quite some time, that destroying this terrorist threat requires decisive action. A speech is not the same thing as a strategy, however. While the president presented a compelling case for action, many questions remain. Strong action is what Americans want. A Fox News poll shows 57% of voters think the president is weak and indecisive on foreign policy, while 54% think he's not prepared to do whatever it takes to defeat ISIS.
Because he didn't leave himself enough options in terms of how to deploy military forces, such as U.S. boots on the ground, I think there may be some things that will either have to be recalibrated in the future or there will be a significant shortfall in what we're able to accomplish.
The president called on Congress to approve a program to train and arm moderate Syrian rebels fighting ISIS and the Assad regime. Republicans and Democrats have serious questions about specifics on the president's plan, but they appear united in wanting to be involved.
The president should be seeking congressional approval, period.
I believe it would be a grievous mistake after 13 years of war to evolve toward a new strategy of taking prolonged military action without bothering to seek congressional approval.
Meanwhile, the president reminded Americans of the brutal nature of ISIS, but he made two things clear.
We will hunt down terrorists who threaten our country wherever they are. If you threaten America, you will find no safe haven.
But critics have attacked the president for not acknowledging the religious motivations of the Islamic extremists. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Scores of Americans are believed to have joined the jihad in Syria and Iraq, and they pose a serious threat to the U.S. That's just one reason the House held a hearing about ISIS Wednesday. Government officials told members of the Homeland Security Committee about steps they're taking to track terrorists with U.S. and Western passports. But one congressman warned the problem goes far beyond airport security. It also involves illegal traffic across our southern border.
We have no idea who's in our country. For us not to recognize that we have open borders and that we have no idea who has entered our country illegally and what their intentions were, whether it was an intention to get a job and provide for their family or was it an intention to maybe create a terrorist cell and do something nefarious in the future, we don't know.
Today marks 13 years since the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Around the country, many are pausing to remember those lost. From the annual ceremony at Ground Zero to memorials in the nation's capital. But after all these years, the threat of radical Islam continues. Today, the nation pauses to reflect on the worst terror attack ever on U.S. soil. Memorials honoring the lost have become a way of life. In New York at Ground Zero, family members reading the names of each victim lost 13 years ago.
I'm just waiting for the pain to go away.
In Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Wanda Anita Green.
At the Pentagon. And in the nation's capital, leaders of the House and Senate presented congressional gold medals honoring the fallen heroes of 9/11.
With these medals, we honor the heroism of first responders and ordinary citizens. We remember the perseverance of the loved ones that they left behind and the advocacy of the 9/11 families who turned their grief into action to make our nation safer.
In the midst of memorials and ceremonies here in the U.S., another battle rages, with many sounding the alarm about the continued threat of terrorists around the globe.
13 years after 9/11, it's still a dangerous world.
So that threat remains and is constantly there.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney says it's time to get back on the offense in the war on terrorism.
The terrorist threat, far from receding like a tide, has been advancing and multiplying. These are but a few of the features that make the situation today one of the most dangerous we have faced, certainly in my lifetime.
Meanwhile, many changes surround the 9/11 anniversary. One World Trade Center is near completion.
This building's success and height is a sign of the revival and the resurgence of downtown Manhattan and the city and the state and the region to the events of 9/11.
And the 9/11 Museum has opened, and the fences have come down around the Memorial Plaza. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, a memorial marking the spot where Flight 93 crashed has been set up. All efforts to make sure the nation never forgets.
Joining us now with more on the war on terror is Bill Raggio, editor of the Long War Journal at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Bill, did the president outline a strategy that can truly defeat ISIS?
No, I don't believe that he did. He's outlined the same strategy, basically, that's being used in Yemen and Somalia, and he held these two countries up as a success. And the reality is that they're nothing but, and if you look at what's happened in these countries over the last several years, you'll see that these countries are embattled, fighting al-Qaeda affiliates there, Shabab in Somalia, and al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen. So he wants to use an air campaign and counterterrorism tactics to defeat a counterinsurgency threat. The Islamic State isn't just a terrorist group, as the president laid out. It's a group that has an army. It's a group that controls territory and it administers territory, and it has a following. And if he thinks that we can just try and defeat this group from the air and rely on unreliable actors to do so, I think he's sadly mistaken.
We've seen the beheadings. How serious a threat is ISIS to the U.S.?
ISIS is absolutely a threat to the U.S. And look, ISIS is nothing new. It's the successor to al-Qaeda in Iraq. We've been battling this group for more than a decade now. And it certainly is a threat. Foreign fighters are flocking to it. It's become the most popular jihadist movement in the globe right now. With the number of foreign fighters, we have to be concerned with that, because they can turn around and come back to the U.S. or to Western countries and conduct attacks there.
Well, Bill, the president said last night that the group known as the Islamic State, ISIS, is not Islamic. How important is it for us to grasp the ideology of our enemy in order to defeat terrorism? It's key, actually. We want to pretend that this is just a terrorist group that's primary goal is to conduct terrorist attacks, and it's not. It's a radical Islamist group that seeks to impose a global caliphate and impose Sharia law upon the world, and it's acting out upon that. And that's what it's doing. It's trying to take over individual countries one at a time, with the ultimate goal of establishing an Islamic State. Until 13 years after 9/11, we still don't properly understand the nature of our enemy. And until we properly define and understand our enemy, we won't be able to conduct a strategy to defeat them. So we can talk about counterterrorism and operations in Iraq and Syria and airstrikes and this and that. But the reality is we really don't get what we're fighting. All right. Bill Raggio of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Senator Ted Cruz's support for Israel caused an uproar at an event in support of Middle East Christians last night. Cruz was the main speaker for the inaugural dinner of a new group called In Defense of Christians. Many Middle East Christians, including some Palestinians, were in the crowd. In his remarks, Cruz spoke out in support of Israel, prompting some to begin booing. Cruz then pointed out that the same terrorists who are attacking Christians in the Middle East also want to destroy Israel. He also said Israel is the only state in the Middle East that protects religious freedom for Christians. In a statement, Cruz said many in the audience applauded his remarks, but a, quote, vocal and angry minority tried to shout him down. Eventually, he said the anti-Semitism and bigotry forced him to leave the stage. He told the crowd, "If you will not stand with Israel, if you will not stand with the Jews, then I will not stand with you."
Scientists are concerned about a strong solar storm headed toward Earth, but the worst of the storm's power is expected to barely skim above the planet, so it may not cause any major problems. The Space Weather Prediction Center in Colorado says the power grid may see fluctuations because the storm will cause changes in the Earth's magnetic field. That may cause slight disturbances in satellites and radio transmissions. But the solar blast could have caused extensive damage if it was a direct hit.
Missouri has passed a 72-hour waiting period for women seeking abortions in the state. Democratic Governor Jay Nixon had vetoed the measure, calling it extreme and disrespectful toward women because it included no exceptions for rape and incest. But Missouri lawmakers overrode his veto. The Republican-led legislature argued that all unborn lives have an equal value no matter how they're conceived. The measure requires women to consult a physician and then wait 3 days before having an abortion.
And coming up, the Star-Spangled Banner still waves over the land of the free and the home of the brave, celebrating the 200th anniversary of America's national anthem.
Stop! Living with hair loss, that is. Losing your hair is no fun and no one wants to be bald, but there is hope.
Getting my hair back was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I'm happy with the way I look now. I'm very excited about my hair.
I feel beautiful.
I love my hair.
Hair Club offers all proven hair loss solutions backed by our commitment to satisfaction guarantee. If you're not 100% satisfied with the solution you choose, Hair Club will apply the purchase price to another proven hair loss solution or transplant more hair at no charge.
It was the best thing I've ever done.
It looks good on me.
Call in the next 5 minutes to get your free brochure at no obligation. It will tell you everything you need to know about your hair loss problem, and it's free if you call now.
I am more pleased than what I had even imagined.
I at least look, I would say, 5 years younger.
I'm 52, and I look better now than I did when I was in my 40s.
I feel great.
And that's not all. The first 100 people who call will also receive $250 off any hair loss solution from Hair Club. Call now.
Welcome to Clearwater Marine Aquarium.
Winter's been such an inspiration for me.
She's not doing well. Winter needs to be paired with another female, and soon.
Marine Fisheries just picked up a stranding. It's a female.
Hello, Hope.
What is wrong with that bird?
Where do I start?
We don't know if dolphins feel friendship. It feels like they do, and that's not a bad thing.
Dolphin Tale 2, rated PG, starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
I love that fish!
the wonder of winter continues.
Isn't she just amazing?
For crying out loud.
With Mavis.
Say cheese.
Mandy.
Here we go, guys. Go, Mandy!
Rufus.
What is wrong with that bird?
Where do I start?
And introducing Hope.
She's precious.
Hello, Hope.
Dolphin Tale 2, rated PG.
Inside every child is a hero.